So my name is Cynthia, and a little bit about myself. I'm from Taiwan, and I graduated from University of Illinois with a graphic design degree. So right now, I am the UI UX designer at Safe Space Singapore. So Safe Space is a mental health counseling platform, online and offline. In case you don't know, it's also one of the sponsors for MindfulHacks. So before we begin, I want you to get your phone and scan this QR code. So this QR code will take you to a Slido page. A Slido is where you can ask the questions like you have throughout the workshop. So it's easier for me to look at your question from Slido since I can just check in on my phone. So I would really appreciate if you can ask questions there. And I will also post a link in Zoom chat box as well. Okay, so I've also posted a link in Zoom chat box. So we will have several interactions throughout the workshop today, and it will be on Slido as well. Okay. All right. So first, before we begin, I want to ask how many of you are familiar with UX? And now you will see on the Slido page, there should be a poll. And can you please choose your option? So first option is I'm familiar with UX, but I haven't applied UX concepts into my project. And second is I know UX, but I haven't really used it in my project. And third is I'm not familiar with UX. Okay, cool. I see that a lot of you guys don't know the term UX, and most of you guys have heard UX, but don't know how to use it. Okay, that's okay. So personally, I think UX, short for user experience, is a process for continuous learning. The field is so broad and it's so hard to learn everything. Even I'm still learning too. So today I'll be sharing with you guys about the fundamental of UX design. And throughout the workshop, if you have any questions, just comment on Slido, and then I will look at the question at the end of the workshop because I want to keep the flow of the workshop going. Okay. So today, the agenda, we will first talk about the concept of UX. What is UX and why is UX important into your project? And then we're gonna talk about how to UX, including the basic steps or concepts that frames UX. And I'm also be giving you guys some practical tips and hacks that you can use in your project. And the last 5 to 10 minutes will be for answering all the questions you have. And is there any comment that you might have for me as well? Okay, so what is UX? I'm going to begin by showing you guys some scenarios that involve UX design in your real life. Okay, scenario 1, imagine you're at a hotel and you just finished check-in and your room key is 220. So you took the elevator to the second floor, and then when you exit the elevator, you see this sign on the corridor. So my question is, which one would you go to find room 220? Would you go left or would you go right? You can think about it, you don't need to tell me. So the fact is there's no right or wrong answer because this arrow here could be pointing to this room number or this room number. So it's because of the US law in the sign. So it's not really clear for the people to find room 220. So scenario 2, have you ever had a time where you really need to wash your hands, but when you walk into a public toilet, the sink looked like this? So can you imagine what would happen when you open the water? This would be my reaction because the water would go everywhere around the sink, but not the sink itself, right? Okay, scenario 3, when you inform that your meeting room is on the 6R floor, first of all, I would think that what on earth is a 6R floor? Then when I walk into the elevator, this is what I see. So let's say the meeting is super urgent and the boss is here and I am late. So my mind is everywhere and now I need to find out how to get to the 6th floor. So should I press this or this or this? I don't think I can make a decision within 1 second, right? So what about this display of floor in elevator? Is this clear? I think yes, it is clear. So last but not least, imagine you are standing in front of this door. How would you open it? Would you push or would you pull? And you can see a pull on Slido as well. So can you choose your option? So would you push or would you pull when you stand in front of this door? Okay, I see 90% of you would push. Okay, moving to the next one. How about this door? Would you push or would you pull? Also choose your response on Slido. Okay, so the question is, I want to ask you, how did you make the decision of whether to push or pull? Think about it for a bit. And if you can share with me your answer either on Slido, or I don't know if you can like open your mic to see the answer, but that's okay. Like you can type your answer in Slido if you want to share with me your answer. How did you make the decision of whether to push or pull the door? Okay. So Alex said based on the handles of the doors, the hinges, and the door frame. Nice. Okay, so usually we make decisions based on two things. First is memory. We recognize this door and the door handle, as Alex just said. And we recognize that it's a long bar that can be pressed. So we intuitively know how to open this door. It's like a trained muscle in our brain, like how you automatically know how to use a chopstick or a toothbrush. Okay. And the second thing that we usually make decision based on is observing the hints given by the designer. So let's say like the door on the left, we see that it's a door and it has a horizontal long bar and a smaller bar on top of it. It looked like something that can be pressed. And so I tried pressing it and it worked. So that is I am performing the pressing action based on my assumption of the interaction. Whereas the door on the right, I see that the door bar is thin and it's vertical. So it looks really light. That's something I can just wrap my hands over and then just like pull it open. And then it worked after I tried it. So as you can see, the design of the door handle are the hints that the designer is trying to give me. And all I'm doing is just experimenting with my assumption of interaction. So if push doesn't work, I'll just try the other option, right? So now the question for us today is how do we design the hints of the door to make sure that the user interact with the object the way we want them to interact? Okay, there are three things that we always need to keep in mind. First is the purpose of the object. Second is the people who will be interacting with the object. And third is a context that the object will be used in. So in this case, the purpose of an emergency exit door is to block fire and allow people to exit the building fast. And the people, user, who will be using the door is human beings who can perform movement like push and pull. And third, the context is potentially designed for its fire emergency situation. So if the designer were designing an emergency door for a dog, it wouldn't look like this anymore, I assume. Okay, so as you can see, a purpose, user, context of the object would influence the intended interaction and hence influence the design of the object to suit the interaction. So the emergency door here example you see is a very iconic example of UX design in real life. And what would be a door on a digital interface? It would be UI UX. So definition of UX involves three things. So user, product, and the user experience in between. UX design is the design of an interaction experience between a product and its targeted end user, whether the interaction experience is meaningful, enjoyable, easy, or has emotion and reactions. And the most important part that we have to remember in this workshop today is that there are 4 requirements in UX design that we always need to follow. First is functional. So functional meaning that meet the user's needs. So let's say if it's a store, it must be able to be open and closed properly. And second is dependable. So that means always give the user freedom to control. So when you're on like Shopee, you must be able to give the shopper on Shopee able to add and remove things into their shopping cart, right? So third is ease of use. That means easy to use and learn. So let's say like maybe your school has a new class registration website. And when you go onto the website, it tells you like step-by-step process on how to navigate around the process. And fourth is pleasurable, which is surprise and delight. So that is an example is like if you order food delivery and the restaurant give you like a discount voucher and or like you receive like a handwritten card from the restaurant owner and you feel really happy and warm. So this is pleasurable. So these four things are really important that we always have to keep in mind when we're designing. And the way I tend to remember this is remember the first capital letter of each of the requirements. So FDEP, that's FDEP, okay? And so I will be asking you guys throughout the workshop about what's the four requirements of UX. So make sure to remember this. Okay, so why UX? Why is UX important to your project? Because your product is designed for real users who have emotions, different values, behaviors, and thoughts toward the same product. And simply put, if your user is not happy, they won't buy your product, and you won't get any money from them. And even if the product is designed for animals, it's still a human being who is making the purchasing decision. Okay, so next is how to UX. So basically, the question can be refined to how to design positive UX experience for customers. And how do we design positive experience to customers? To basically need to satisfy the four requirements of UX. And so who can tell me what's the four requirements in UX? You can type it in Slido, answer. The four requirements in UX. Okay, so the four requirements of UX is FDEP, remember? Functional, dependable, ease of use, and pleasurable. Functional stands for meets the user's needs, and dependable stands for freedom to control. Ease of use stands for easy to use and learn, and pleasurable stands for surprise and delight. So these four things are really important in terms of designing your experience for the user. So we have two steps when doing UX design. And the first is research. The second is design. A lot of people have an idea for a product and they will just jump into step two, design. But when they finish a product and they roll it out into the market, they'll find that the product either don't sell well, or the users don't know how to use the product, or they don't use the product at all. And a lot of the reason is because they didn't do enough research. So we definitely don't want that to happen. So now some of you might be thinking, how can we do our research so that it can help us to design a positive UX experience for our users? So there are three things that we always need to focus on in our research. It's purpose, user, and context. And remember, I just talked about it in the emergency door example just now. So some questions that can help you guide your research is for purpose, is basically the why. So what's the problem you're trying to solve here? Why should your product and service exist? And the user is target audience. So what are the behavior and thought your user has, and what is their motivation, their values, and who are you designing this product for, and what kind of struggles do they have? And the last one is context. So context is environment. So where will your service or product be used at, and what is users' physical and mental behavior in this context? And also what device would they be using most likely? So imagine if you're designing an app that is going to be used when people are commuting, then what kind of environment is in a commuting, like a public transport? So is it shaky? And what kind of device would user tend to have? Is it mobile or desktop? And also, what kind of mood would user tend to be in? When people are commuting, it's most likely before work or after work. They tend to be tired and really annoyed. What are the emotions that they tend to have? Okay. So to give you an example, we're back to the emergency door. The designer of the emergency door first did research before this design project. So the kind of things that they research on are what kind of emergency situation could happen in the building, and what are the reasons that could slow down the process, and also what are people's behavior mentally and physically when an emergency situation happens. And also, is there any escape route plan currently, and what is the demographic of people in this building? So after they did the research, they identified purpose, user, and context for their design project. So this is what you're going to do too. At the end of the workshop, I will provide you with a sheet, and the sheet has guiding questions of each of these topics. And then after you either Google or ask maybe your target audience on the answers, and you feel like you have identified the purpose, user, and context already, then you can move on to the next step. The next step is design. So just to kind of summarize things a bit. So first step, research. research is the fundamental to UX design. You cannot have good UX design if you don't know who's the user, and you cannot have good design without a goal to solve. So design is the step where we experiment the different solutions to test out which one is most suitable to satisfy our purpose for our user and for the specific context that the user will use the product in. I know it sounds kind of like tongue twister, but it will make sense eventually. So I know some of you guys might be wondering what's a prototype. So prototype is an early sample, model, or release of a product built to test a concept or process. In other words, it's something that you build to experiment and find out what's the best functionality and accessibility design for product that can help you solve the problem. Okay, so in other words, this is a stage where we get our hands dirty. And the key here is to be fast and creative. So I'm going to be talking about the 3 tools that you can use in prototyping stage. So the 3 tools are paper, scissor, pencil, and Envision and Miro. I know you might be thinking, what, paper can make prototype? Yes, because the key of prototyping is to be fast and creative. So you absolutely cannot do is spend hours trying to get your prototype to be perfect. Instead, you should use the most accessible resources to generate prototype. And so the process has to be fast. And as long as a prototype can create interaction already, then you can move on to the next phase. And we will talk about the next phase later. So you can see this is how the designer of the door trying to figure out like what is the best way to design the handle. So that he used like cardboard and pin and glue. And then you can even draw your prototype with pencil or like pen. And this is a wireframe prototype I found from Leticia, is a designer from San Francisco. So like in this case, this designer just draw the bus app prototype on paper. Okay, so it can be really easy. So next step is Envision. Envision is a tool on web that allows you to actualize the prototype you draw. So to kind of show you what it looked like, this is how Envision looked like. So it's a tool that allows you to put the drawing prototype that you just did onto the web, and then you can select the interaction you want and then play around with your prototype with this Envision tool. And I'll be showing you guys how to do this at the end of the workshop. So don't worry about it for now. And in fact, at the end, I mentioned that I'll provide you guys a sheet, right? The sheet will also have instruction of step-by-step instruction of how to create a prototype with Envision. So next, Miro. Miro is a super awesome and fast prototyping because it already has like a tool set of wireframing elements. So also to show you how to look like, it's like this. So it has like a toolbox here for you to drag and drop the elements that you want for your wireframe. So it can be very, very fast and simple for you to do. And so again, I'll demonstrate how to do this in the end of the workshop. And also the instruction will also be in the sheet I provided at the end of the workshop. So how can we choose which idea to make into prototype, and how can we assess if the prototype is good or not? These are some of the guiding questions that can help you to make up the thought. And also the other thing that we should always keep in mind is to always remember to match our prototype with the 4 UX requirements. So do you guys remember what's the 4 UX requirements? If you do, you can type it in Slido and answer. If not, that's okay too. It's called FDEP. So functional, dependable, ease of use, and pleasurable. Okay, it's very, very, very important for you to remember this 4 requirements. So after you finish the prototype, now we will enter the second. Oh, thank you. So we will enter the second stage, which is test and iterate. So test and iterate is a stage where you want to test if the prototype you create can satisfy the purpose. And you want to know if the prototype is suitable for your targeted user to use, or if the prototype is suitable to be used in the specific context. So as you can see, the question that I was proposing just now are the questions from the research phase. So it's very, very crucial that you've done your research well, so you know how to design your product to ensure that it satisfies the requirements of UX. Okay, so let's say we finish testing and then we get feedback from our user and the test, right? Then we will apply the feedback into our next prototype. So we will apply the iterations to create a second prototype and then put it into test again, and then get feedback and then test again. So test and iterate is a continuous process that will help you to fine-tune your prototype to make it closer and closer to the purpose, the context, and the user that you're designing for. So a method that you can use in this hackathon is called usability testing. It's a really fast way to help you test if your user can interact with your product successfully. So the goal of usability testing is to test out if your participants can use your app without your guidance. And who do you need? You need 1 to 3 participants who are not familiar with your design. And how you will do it is, first, you're gonna need to prepare your prototype. So if you remember the 3 bus app prototype that I showed you guys, that can be a prototype already. So the second thing is you're gonna recruit the participants. And again, 1 to 3 people is enough. And it can be your mom or dad or anyone you can grab next to you. So as long as they are not familiar with your design. And then when you're gonna proceed to conduct the test. So the first thing you're gonna do when you conduct the test is you're gonna ask questions as warm-up check. So what's the habit of using mobile? And or if your prototype is about food delivery app, then you will ask the participant what is their dining habits, what is their habit of ordering food, and also where do they tend to use these ordering food apps. And then second thing is you're going to assign a task for him or her to complete on your prototype. So if you're testing a food delivery app, you want to see if they know how to order food on the app, and there is an order button on the screen. The task you give them should not be something that involves with the word order, because we should always avoid using any words written on the prototype when assigning a task, because then the user will look for the word order on the prototype when they're testing. So instead, we should try to rephrase the task to be something like, you're hungry, it's dinner time, and you want to get your meal from this app. So you see, you're putting the participant in context and then tell him the task. So when we're assigning tasks, we need to do this kind of language rephrasing to make sure that our test result is accurate. And third thing that we should do is when he or her start executing the task, your role is to stand by them and to ask them to think out loud. So thinking out loud means think verbally. So whatever comes through their mind, they should say it. And this is so that you will know what is the user trying to find and what confuses them, or what are the messages that they perceive from the app. So it's basically anything that goes through their mind. And usually people would forget to think out loud. So you should be here to remind them to think out loud. And throughout the test, you can choose to screen record the test process. So how I used to do it when I do conduct virtual usability tests is that I will ask them to share their screen. And of course, I will send them the prototype link first, and then they share their screen with me, and I will record the Zoom session so that after the test, I can play it back and see how did the user navigate around the website, okay? So some of you might ask, what if the user is stuck? Can I give hint to them? I would say no. Leave them to think about it for a bit, because that is what your user will be out there without your guidance by the side. And also when you observe them trying to solve the problem, it might give you more insights too. So next, I'm gonna be showing you guys a video of a designer conducting a usability test on a kid. So the prototype is a children's coloring website. And in the video, I want you to pay attention to what the designer is saying and how did the designer phrase his sentence to the kid, and how did he prompt his questions to the girl, okay? So here we go. And let me know if there is sound.
So Amelia, thank you very much for being here for this usability test today. We're planning a brand new website for kids and we'd like your help. For your help today, I've got a special present for you after we finish. You see it? You'll get it when we're done. And this shouldn't take more than about 30 minutes. If you need to take a break at any time, just let me know and we can take a break, okay?
Okay.
Before we begin, I'd like to ask you a few questions. First, how often do you go online?
Every day.
Every day, okay. And what websites do you go to?
Nick Jr.
And what's your favorite website? A new website.
Sorry. So as you can see, what the designer is doing first, the designer tells Amelia, the girl, what they're gonna be doing today. And then the designer go ahead and ask Amelia about her habit of using a computer. So like, how frequent do you go online? And what's your favorite website? Okay, so this would get Amelia to kind of like ease her like nervousness a bit, and maybe will be able to participate in your test more like smoothly. So now we're gonna look at how he conduct the test. So here.
This pen will be your mouse. Why don't you take it? Great. If you want to click on something, just tap on it with your pen. So what do you think about this website?
It is great.
It's great. What's great about it?
I like the worm.
What do you think you can do from here?
I can do games, coloring pages, and videos.
Great. Okay, thank you. I want you to remember that you came here to find pages to color in. Okay? All right?
Okay.
So that's what I'd like you to do, is find some pages to color in. What would you do?
I could click on here.
Great. Okay. Well, when you click on there, it takes you to a page like this. Is this what you expected?
Yes.
What do you think you can do from here?
I can click on the buttons.
And what would that do?
Take you to coloring pages.
Oh, okay. What would you want to click on?
So when the designer first present Amelia with a paper prototype of the website, he first asked Amelia, what do you think the website is about? So this is an open-ended question for Amelia to describe whatever she thinks the website is about. So this will give you insights on if you have like designed the website the way that you want the user to interpret the website is. And then the designer assigned Amelia a task, which is to find pages to color in. So this is a very, very open-ended task for Amelia. He didn't specify like which button to click. He didn't really mention any words that is on a prototype because those would mislead the user into doing the task that you want them to do. So, and in this case, Amelia is just using a pen as a finger to like tap on the website. So this can be as easy and as simple as you want it to be. Another example is a food delivery app. So let's say the food delivery app, the purpose is to get desired food fast and simple without going out. And the prototype that this designer designed for is this app process. So in this food delivery app process, first the user was registered for the app, and then he or she would navigate around the food options and then submit order, payment, and then wait for delivery at home. So this is the paper prototype that the designer draw. And again, paper prototype does not need to be perfect. It can be as rough as you want it to, as long as the button look like a button. Okay, so next thing, the designer go in and find 3 participants to do usability testing with. And after the testing, the designer found out that there are so many issues occurred during the testing. So there are so many issues in this prototype, and he or she is like kind of really panic because why is there so many issues? For example, like in registration process, it's so difficult, and navigation food option is not enticing enough, so people wouldn't stay on this page. And submit order is that user cannot add or subtract order easily, and payment is that user cannot find the payment option that they want because it's limited payment option. So in this case, imagine that if you release this kind of product out to the market, what will happen? User will end up being frustrated, disappointed, and then just leave your product and not coming back. So that is why test early is important whenever you're designing product. So in this case, for the designer, what they need to do next is to refine all the problems that they have by prioritizing the problem. So one message that I want to tell you guys is that it is very, very, very normal in a usability test that you will find so many issues in your app. In fact, if this is your first time you're doing usability testing for the app, it is very common that you will have so many issues. So what you need to do now is to prioritize the problem based on the 4 requirements of UX that we identified before. So the 4 requirements of UX is FDEP. So functional, dependable, ease of use, and pleasurable. So some questions that you can ask are like, which one influence user achieving their goal more? And which one would affect users' overall satisfaction to using your product? And so look at the 4 requirements of UX to prioritize the issue that you want to fix first, and which issue is not really severe that you can choose to fix in the later part of the design process. So this designer, he or she pinpoint that these 2 are the 2 problems that they want to focus on first, because registration process, it is when the user first see the product. So it's like a first impression kind of importance. And payment is a step where a user would make purchasing decision. So it's important to make sure that this step doesn't have any problem. So what I'm trying to convey here is that problem will always occur, and problem solving is important. So don't be surprised when there are many problems, especially in the beginning. And it takes many, many iterations and versions to make the product better and better each time. So remember, you need to keep in mind the 4 requirements of UX design. Doesn't matter which step you are in the design process. And here the pyramid shows the hierarchy of the 4 requirements of UX design. So even though functional is the most important in terms of UX requirement, and pleasurable is the least important, but doesn't mean that you should only focus on functional. Instead, you should be focusing on all 4 requirements of UX design whenever you are designing. Okay. So next, tips and rules. We're going to introduce the 10 golden rules of UI UX. And before I talk about the tips and rules, I want to kind of explain the difference between UI and UX, because that tend to be what people are confused about. So UI is how something looks, and UX is about the whole experience. So imagine there are 2 bikes. Bike A looks really, really pretty, but the seat is hard, and when you hold on the brake, it makes a huge squeaky sound. So bad experience. And bike B looks really normal, but when you sit on it, the cushion of the seat is soft and it's really easy to control. So in this case, most users would choose bike B to as their bike option. So you can almost look like UI UX like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is just part of the whole experience. Doesn't matter how pretty the tip is, if there is no base, and which means if there is no UX, the iceberg would fall. On the contrary, if the tip is very small and ugly, but the bottom is strong, it has a really strong and big UX, although the iceberg wouldn't fall, it would take a long time for people to notice it. So what's the conclusion here? Good UI can attract people to use your product and services, but without good UX, your product and services wouldn't last long in the market. So UX is important. Okay, so now you have listened to my talk for like 30 minutes already, and let's play a game. So what I want you guys to do is to go to this website, userinterface.com, and I'll also post the link in the Zoom chat box. So basically, the website looked like this. It's a website UI UX game. So the website includes a fake registration process. What you are going to do is you're going to go through this registration process, but you don't need to put in your real name and email because it's a game. And the purpose of the game is for you to experience the UI UX design on the website. And so my task for you today is to finish this registration process on the website within 2 minutes. Actually, maybe within 1 minute since we're kind of short on time. So after 5 seconds, I'm gonna begin the timer and you can begin to play the game. Okay. Okay, timer has started. Again, this is just a game for you to experience a UI UX design on the website, so you don't need to put in your real information. And let me know if you have any questions. Fifteen seconds left. 5 seconds. All right, time's up. So let's come back to Zoom. Who can share me their experience of playing this game? Anything. You can type it on Slido. This interface is so bad. Who think it was fun? So this is a prank website designed with really, really bad UI and UX. The goal is to show people how important it is to have good UI and UX on your website. So as you just experienced, when the site has bad UI UX, the user can't even successfully register the services for the website, right? So we don't want that to happen. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at several screens from this game and we're going to see how can we fix it to make sure that it satisfies the 4 requirements of UX. And I see some of you commented that it was fun in a frustrating way. The term of use. Okay, so first, I'm going to show you guys a screenshot of the design and then followed by an improved design with tips and rules that we can learn from each improvement, okay? So this screen, this is the first page of the website. It asks you to proceed to the next page. So I think most of you would probably be attracted to the green button here, right? But then because you read the text, so you realize that, okay, clicking no doesn't work. Instead, you should click here. But imagine that if the place looked like this, imagine that this is the first time you see this page. And this is how like the page looked like you. So where would you click to proceed? So I think since you cannot read the text, most of you will probably click the green button as your reaction to the previous screen that I just showed, right? So this is actually how a user with vision impairment would see, or a user who is in rush. Let's say like this user is commuting. So they have like 0.3 seconds to process the information. They cannot read the text properly. So the tips that we can learn here is that as you can see in this improved design, the changes I made is that I changed the text on the button from no to go, and I get rid of all the extra text here because we don't need that. So the reason that we always would look at the green button and we will want to click on the green button to proceed is because green is a universal color that means success or goal, proceed, or like save and submit. So we intuitively know like green should be safe for me to click. And so we wouldn't put red color in this button because it wouldn't make sense since red has a universal meaning of error, stop, no, or danger, right? So in this case, if we choose, if we put green and then we have the word go on this, even for a user who has vision impairment, they can still use the interface without the need to read the text. So this is the first tip for the consistency and standards. So always follow the established universal pattern. So next is this. This is the pop-up box that serves to remind you the remaining time. So most of you will probably also look at the green button when you first see this pop-up box, when you are trying to close it. But then you realize that, oh, the green button actually says lock. So then you see that it says close 2021, then you click this and it closed. Okay, so this shouldn't be the right design. Instead, the button here should says close, and we should also have another close icon on the somewhere in this pop-up box. So that is because we always need to provide freedom of control. One requirement of UX, freedom of control to the user. So that means provide user multiple ways to achieve their goal. In this case, the goal is to close the pop-up box. So in this prototype, in this improved design, as you can see, I changed the green button to close, and I also added a cross icon on the top right corner. So another point I want to make here is that we should always limit the use of pop-up box as much as possible, because a pop-up box would disturb the user's train of thought. They're trying to complete a task. In this case, it's registering for this website. So they have this goal in mind of registering for this website. But then a pop-up box suddenly appeared that disrupts the process of completing this task. And now the user needs to think of ways to get rid of this pop-up box, which require more effort on top of the effort they are already putting into completing the registration process. So only use pop-up box when it's necessary, and only use it if the information in the pop-up box is necessary for the user to complete the action, in this case, the registration process, or if the information in the box is like emergency that user has to pay attention to immediately. If it's not two that I just mentioned above, then don't use a pop-up box, because a pop-up box would feel like an annoying fly that just try to get in your way when you're trying to complete the task. So to recap, how can we ensure freedom of control? First is to provide multiple ways to achieve for a user to achieve their goal. And second is to refrain from using pop-up box. And if you do, always make sure that you provide clear ways for the user to close it. Okay. So next is this. Is a screen for you to put in your email and password. So for this screen, how would you change it, and which part was confusing? And you can tell me the answer on Slido as well, like which part frustrated you the most. Okay, I see some of your comment that the terms of use things was super confusing. It was intentional. Yes, it was intentional. And some of you pressed the large button by instinct. So how I would change this screen is that I would switch the order of email and password, and I would get rid of all the clutter of fields here, because we only need user to enter the email. We don't need all these things. And I would get rid of the countdown, because why do we need a countdown when user is trying to use your service? And then I was also change the button here to next and move the cancel here. And then lastly, I would move all the password requirement up to below password. So it will look something like this. So the tip here is essential information. We only show what the user needs to see, because human brain cannot remember so many things. So we don't need countdown, we don't need extra fields in the email. We just need the essential information for a user to complete the task. And another tip is recognition rather than recall. And this is referring to reducing the information that user have to remember by showing it right when the users need it. So in this case, the password requirement. Not sure if you guys remember the original design. The password requirement has a text like 1 Cyrillic character, and I don't even know what the Cyrillic character. So in this case, if we use established pattern like special character, and then provide example of a special character for the user to see, then user don't need to think about what is a special character. Instead, the user can just look at the example you provided and then use it in their password already. So the key here is we want to limit the amount of information that we need the user to memorize. So we have this improved screen, but we want to make this improvement to prevent users from entering the wrong password. And so the two things that we can do to improve this screen is that we can add an eye icon here, and we can also make the button here disabled when there's nothing entered in the fill box. So That means when user entered their email and password, and if the password matches the requirement would go green. That means like safe and safe, success, or go. So you see, we're using the universal color meaning of green here. And then when user has entered the information correctly, the next button will also light up. So, and if the user want to see the password that they just entered to make sure that it's something that they can remember, they can click on the eye icon to see the password that they just entered. So the tip here we can learn from here is error prevention. So help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. This means like let the user see their password and highlight the password requirement when password matches with the requirement. So green means approved, success, and pass, and you wouldn't use red to symbolize that you have met the requirement, right? So another tip is visibility of system status. Basically what this means is that keep the user informed about the status of the product. So user would always want to see response on the interface when they are interacting with it. In this case, if they're clicking a button, or let's say in this case, they fill in the information of email and password, and the next button light up, that is another visibility of system status. Another example from real life is that when you're in elevator and you see the floor number in the elevator, telling you like which floor is the elevator in currently at right now. So the tips that we just looked at are actually part of the 10 usability heuristic rules. So what is this? You don't need to remember the name. Just remember that this is the Bible of UI UX. And there are 10 rules in the Bible of UI UX, and it's look like this. Just now we look at 7 of them, and I'm gonna talk about the rest of the 3. So first is match between system and the real world. So you see there are 2 designs of stove here. The left has the control at the bottom and in a vertical format. The right has a control in a arrangement that is similar to the stove. So we always want to have the control match the real world, so that in this case, if I want to turn on this stove, I know intuitively that I will need to use this control, instead of trying to figure out which control is connecting to which stove. So this is match between system and real world. Next is flexibility and efficiency of use. So we always want to provide shortcuts or customization to user to use. So for example, in login page, we can provide like a sign in with Facebook or sign in with Apple link, so that user can just click one time and then sign in to the app already. It's less work for them. Or in Google Map, it always helps us to remember the history of the location that we type in, or we can key in our home and our work or our workplace. And lastly, help and documentation. So whenever possible, we always want to present the documentation in the context right at the moment when the user needs it. So documentation here, it means like help guide that teaches user about like how to tackle issues when using a product. So this example I show here is Google Meet. So when you are like, when you see a red dot on the more icon, and when you click on it, it tells you that you have bad Wi-Fi stability, and it also shows you recommendations of how you can fix this bad Wi-Fi. And moreover, it also shows you the status of the Wi-Fi right now. So this is a Fresh Eye audit worksheet. It's from Slack design team. So they create this worksheet to help people to assess their product based on the Bible of UI UX, so the 10 rules of UI UX. And I will also include this table here at the end of the sheet I will provide in the end. Okay, so now we have some time. I will quickly show you guys how to create a prototype. And since this workshop will be recorded and will be put on YouTube, so you can always go back to this video and see how to do it. So first we'll demonstrate Miro. Miro, you will go to miro.com and then sign up or sign in to Miro. And then it will have you have like an automatic process for you to fill in the information about your team. And if you're just by yourself, it's okay. You can still go through the process. And after you enter all the information, it will ask, what do you want to do? In this case, you can choose whichever you want to do. But if we are designing a wireframe, you can choose design and research. And it will look like this. So I will be demonstrating. So for example, Let me quit this first. So after you either sign up or log into your Miro board, this is how you will look like. And so you can click on new board here. So create a shared board. And then it will ask you which kind of template do you want. In this case, we want to choose under research and design, app wireframe, use template. Okay, so this will be the space for you to design your app wireframe. So on the toolbox at the left, you will see that there's a 3 dots. So click on 3 dots, go to wireframe library. Or you can also drag the wireframe library into your toolbox here. So it's easier access for you. Then you can drag in whether your prototype is on phone, or if it's on tablet, or if it's on a browser. And from here, you can drag in any elements that you want in your prototype. So let's say we want to make a login screen. So I will put in a heading, let's say welcome. And then I want to put a picture below the welcome. So this can be a representation of picture. And then I want to put a text box to let people to enter email and password. So I want to search for text box. So text box here, email and password. So you are free to make the width of the text box wider if you want to. And lastly, we want a button that says login. So where is the button? The button is here, login. All right, and we want to make this button big. Well, maybe not that big. Long, like this. And what color should we use? Definitely not red. We should use either green or any other color that doesn't symbolize I stop. So in this case, I'll use this green here. So if you want to add in text, you can also use this text function here. So in this case, I want to add a forgot password. So I don't want this to be bold, and I want this to be smaller. And I want this to be underlined so that people know this is something that they can click on. And also I want to create another hyperlink for people to go to if they are not a member yet. So first time user, sign up here. All right. And also I can choose to make this into another color to make sure that it's a link, to tell people that it's a link that can be clicked. Okay, so this is how you can create prototype on Miro. And next, we're going to talk about Envision. So I know I might be kind of fast here, but you can always go back to this video and then revise if you want to. So Envision, you go to envision.com and also sign up and log in to the tool. And then this is what you will see. And because I already have an account, so this is the prototype that I already have in Envision. So what you're going to do is, let me go to the screen too. So this is your dashboard. And when you're at your dashboard, you want to click here to add a new prototype. And in this case, you should already have all your app screens exported into JPEG or PNG, or I think it also supports GIF. So you want to create new prototype and type in your name. Let's say MindfulHacks. Oh, okay, MindfulHacks 2. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to drag and drop the files or pictures that I have into the tool. And then I'm gonna go into each screen. Oops. So with Envision, okay. With Envision, they can only allow you to produce one prototype with a free plan. And I think they kind of changed it recently. So now I cannot build another prototype, but that's okay. So maybe I'll just delete this. So in your case, if you're new to Envision, you can create a prototype. So what you're gonna do is that you're gonna go into the screen. So this is how the screen will look like, and you will go into build mode. So select build, and then you are going to drag the area of interaction you want on your app screen. In this case, this is a phone notification. So you want the user to go to the app when they click on this. So you will click the destination for this hotspot will be screen 2, and you will click save. And then when you press shift and click, you will be able to navigate the app like this. And so for confirm, I want the user to be able to go to screen 3 when they hit confirm. So save. Here, there we go. So you can preview the interaction you just made by go into preview mode. So in this case, we will go back to our first screen, and then we will play around with our prototype like this. So this is just a really simple way to kind of demonstrate how to use Miro and Envision to help you to create fast and easy prototype for you. So close up. So as I promised before, there will be a takeaway sheet at the end of the survey, and I would really appreciate it if you guys can go to this link. So this link is actually a survey link for you to fill out. I'll also put this in a Zoom chat box. So after you finish the survey for me, it will provide a link for you to access the sheet. So just to kind of give you how the survey looked like, it's basically like really simple question of how you think about the workshop, like any advice you want to give me, I really appreciate it. And then the tip sheet I provided for you guys look like this. So first you will see the requirement of UI UX design, and then the research questions, guiding questions, and then some prototyping tools that you can use with link to the download. And also exact step-by-step of how to create a prototype with Miro, and also how to create prototype with Envision. So whatever I just demonstrated is also in this tip sheet as well. And then there are also some extra tools that you can use to help you with your design process. For example, some color contrast testers, or button size and gaps requirement, and also the Bible of UI UX. So this is how you can assess your product, if it's good or not, and other resources that you can use. And also if you have any question, feel free to pin me on my email or like my LinkedIn. Okay, so yeah, so that will be, let me check if Slido has any questions. So if you guys have any question at the end of the workshop, this is it from what I'll be presenting to you guys. And thank you if you don't have any questions.
It's been an awesome workshop that you put up for us. Thanks so much. I took your link and I sent it to the info and announcements channel in our Discord. So for whoever's worried about losing the link, it's there. Hopefully you enjoyed Cynthia's workshop. I thought it was great, and feel free to reach out to her. She's really nice.
Yes, I'm nice. I won't bite. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Timothy.
No worries at all. Thanks for coming. Actually, if anyone has questions that they might have heard, perhaps you could drop in Slido. Cynthia, is there a feature where you can answer their questions on Slido?
Actually, I see there's a question. So the question is, actually, I have a question about the sign up button from the demo just now. Why did you make the sign up as small text instead of the same size as the login? Oh, in this case, it's because the screen we were at is a login page. So if this is a screen for sign up, then the focus would be sign up. So since the page is a login page, then we would want login to be big and sign up to be small, because the user who will be on this page is mostly for login. So this will be another case of user here is for sign up. Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah. If anyone has questions on UX, we do have a UX and UI sort of mentoring channel. Cynthia, you're in the Discord, right? So she'll be able to, she and Mashuk, I think you can see him in the chat here. They'll be able to answer questions on UI UX that you can drop in there. Yeah, so I think I have to close this session now because we have a workshop right after this.
Yeah.
So
All right. Good luck,
everyone,
guys.
if you have any questions, drop it in the mentoring channels, and people like Cynthia and Marshall will come and help you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.